hall of the interstellar summit was built to silence fear, yet fear lived in every breath taken inside it. Thousands of lights floated above a wide circular chamber, glowing softly to please many kinds of eyes. Delegates from distant systems sat in raised tiers, their shapes strange and varied, some tall and thin, others broad or folded like living stone. At the center stood the human delegation, small in number but steady in posture. They had come to speak of peace, trade, and borders. None of them expected what was about to happen. Han Jisu stood near the back of the human line. He was not a hero, nor a soldier of fame. He worked with cargo routes and supply records, the quiet systems that kept fleets alive. His uniform was plain, his hands folded behind him as he listened. He watched the great doors on the far side of the hall, the one sealed since the summit began. When the doors opened, sound left the room. The figure who entered did not rush. She moved with calm purpose, each step slow and certain. Her skin held a deep silver tone that reflected the lights above. Long dark hair fell straight down her back, untouched by gravity in a way that unsettled the eye. Her eyes were sharp and still, like stars that had learned to judge. This was Rin Era. A ripple of tension passed through the hall. Even those who had never seen her before knew the weight she carried. Stories about her people crossed the galaxy. Ancient, disciplined, and rarely forgiving. They did not come to summits without reason. She stopped at the center circle and raised one hand. The translators waited. The room waited. Rin Era spoke in a clear and steady voice. It carried without effort. I have heard your offers. I have seen your gifts. I refuse them all. Murmurs broke the silence. Several delegates shifted in their seats. The human ambassador, Kong Mira, felt her chest tighten, but kept her face calm. Rin Era continued. Instead, I make a single demand. I claim a human as my prize. The word prize echoed through the translators, repeated in dozens of languages. Confusion followed, then shock. A human delegate stood halfway before being pulled back by a colleague. Voices rose, sharp and afraid. Some alien representatives leaned forward. Others recoiled. A prize was not a harmless word in galactic history. It carried memories of conquest and loss. Kong Mira stepped forward, her voice firm. You must explain this demand. Humans are not objects to be taken. Rin Era turned her gaze toward the human delegation. Her eyes rested there, steady and unreadable. I have explained enough. The human will come willingly, or this summit ends. The threat was not spoken loudly. It did not need to be. Li Suna, the xenolinguist, whispered urgently as she scanned her console. The translation was accurate. Too accurate. The word used by Rin Era did not mean slave. It did not mean captive. It meant something closer to a claimed bond. Ancient and binding. Kong Mira clenched her jaw. Name the human you demand. Rin Era lifted her hand again and pointed. Not at the front, but toward the back. Han Jisu. The name struck him like cold water. Han Jisu felt the eyes turn. He straightened without knowing why. His heart beat hard, yet his mind stayed clear in a strange way. He searched his memory for any moment he might have crossed paths with her. There was nothing. No meeting. No message. No warning. Kong Mira turned sharply. This is impossible. He is not a political figure. He holds no command. That is why he is chosen, Rin Era replied. The hall erupted. Delegates spoke over one another. Security fields shimmered as systems prepared for conflict. A demand like this could shatter years of work. Han Jisu stepped forward before anyone could stop him. Would like to speak. The request was simple. The room hesitated, then quieted, surprised more by the calm tone than the words themselves. Kong Mira looked back at him, eyes warning. Han Jisu met her gaze and gave a small nod. He was afraid, but fear did not rule him. He faced Rin Era. I do not understand why you chose me. I do not know you. But if you believe I belong to you, then you are mistaken. A stir passed through the hall. No one spoke to Rin Era this way. She studied him closely now. Not as a symbol, not as a demand, but as a person. You speak without fear. I speak because I am human, Han Jisu replied. And humans do not belong to anyone. For a moment, something like interest crossed her face. Then this will be difficult, she said. She turned back to the council. The summit is paused. I will not repeat my demand again. With that, she stepped back. The great doors closed behind her, sealing with a sound that echoed like final judgment. The hall burst into noise. Kong Mira grabbed Han Jisu by the arm and pulled him aside. Do you understand what you just did? He nodded. Yes, I spoke. Li Suna joined them, her face pale. Her people do not choose without reason. Whatever this is, it is not random. Han Jisu looked at the closed doors. His reflection stared back at him from the smooth surface. I want to know why, he said quietly. Far beyond the hall, in a chamber prepared long before the summit began, Rin Era stood alone. She placed her hand against a symbol carved into the wall. Old beyond memory. The human had spoken as the record said he would. The first sign had been confirmed. The summit hall did not return to normal after Rin Era left. The lights stayed dim, and the air felt heavy, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Delegates spoke in low voices, some angry, some afraid. Security teams moved closer to the human section, not to protect them, but to watch them. Han Jisu sat alone on a narrow bench near the wall. He had been asked to wait there while others argued about his future. The words prize and demand echoed again and again in his mind. He did not feel special. He did not feel chosen. He felt like a stone dropped into deep water, waiting to see how far the ripples would spread. Kang Mira stood before the council, her voice sharp and controlled. This summit was built on consent. No species here has the right to claim a citizen of another. Some delegates agreed. Others stayed silent. A few watched with open interest, as if this was only a problem between humans and Rin Era's people. Li Suna continued to work at her station, replaying the recorded speech again and again. She slowed the alien language, breaking it into pieces. The word translated as prize carried layers of meaning: honor, responsibility, burden, bond. None of them fully fit. She looked toward Han Jisu and frowned. This was not a threat, made in anger. She said quietly to Kong Mira, "It was planned. That makes it worse," Kong Mira replied. Hours passed. The summit remained paused. Messages arrived from Earth. Leaders demanded answers. Military advisors suggested evacuation plans. Others warned that angering Rin Era's people could lead to disaster. Han Jisu was finally called into a private chamber. The room was small and plain, built for humans. Kong Mira and Li Suna waited inside. Sit, Kong Mira said. He did. You understand the risk, she said. If this turns violent, your name will be part of history. Han Jisu nodded. I did not ask for this. No, Li Suna said softly. But it found you anyway. She hesitated, then continued. We searched the archives. Your name appears once before. Han Jisu looked up. Where? A supply incident near an outer border station years ago. A damaged alien vessel was denied aid under emergency rules. You were the officer who delayed the denial. He remembered. The file had been simple. Low priority. Unknown species. He had noticed life signs still active and chose to reroute supplies before command approval arrived. He had been reprimanded later. They survived, Li Suna said. Records show one of their kind was injured, but lived. Han Jisu leaned back. Stunned. That was her people. Yes. Silence filled the room. You did your job, Kang Mira said. You broke rules, but you saved lives. That does not give her the right to take you. Han Jisu stared at his hands. Maybe to her it does. A message arrived moments later. Rin Era requested a private meeting with the human she named. Alone. The room erupted in protest. Guards were called. Warnings issued. Han Jisu stood. I will go. Kang Mira stepped in front of him. Absolutely not. If I refuse, he said calmly, this gets worse. I want to hear her reason from her own mouth. Li Suna studied him, then nodded slowly. He should go. But we monitor everything. The meeting room, prepared for Rin Era, was vast and bare. The walls were smooth stone. No guards stood inside. She was already there when Han Jisu entered. She turned to face him. You came. I wanted answers, he said. She inclined her head slightly. Not a bow, but close. Most would hide behind leaders. You do not. He met her gaze. You asked for me like an object. That is not how humans live. She was silent for a moment. Among my people, she said, to be claimed is to be protected until death. That still removes choice. He replied. She studied him again. Longer this time. Choice defines your kind. It does. She walked toward a window that showed distant stars. Your action saved one of my kin. That act changed paths unseen by you. You walked away. You expected nothing. Han Jisu swallowed. I did not think about rewards. That is why you matter. Rin Era said. She turned back. But I will not force you. The demand was tradition, not command. Then why threaten the summit? Because fear makes councils listen. He frowned. That sounds like power, not honor. A pause. You speak dangerously for someone so fragile, she said. Maybe, Han Jisu replied. But someone had to say it. For the first time, her expression softened. You remind me why the record named you the Quiet Defier. The meeting ended without agreement. When Han Jisu returned, the summit waited for his words. He stood before them, smaller than the chamber, yet steady. I am not a prize, he said, but I am willing to talk. Not as property, as a person. Across the stars, something shifted. Not all fear was gone, but curiosity replaced some of it. Iron Era watched from the shadows. The second sign had been confirmed. The summit did not end after Han Jisu spoke. It changed shape. The loud arguments faded, replaced by careful watching. Every delegate now studied the humans with new attention, not as a weak species, but as an unknown one. Han Jisu was placed under observation, not confinement. He was free to move within the human section, but guards followed at a distance. He noticed how often people looked at him, then quickly looked away. He felt like a symbol wearing a human face. Kang Mira joined him near a wide viewing panel that showed a slow river of stars. You should never have been put in this position, she said. He nodded. But now that I am, I want to understand it. Li Suna approached with a data slate held close to her chest. I spent the night studying their records, she said. Rin Era's people believe the galaxy moves on patterns. Rare ones. When a pattern breaks, they mark the cause. And that cause is me. Han Jisu said. She hesitated. Yes. The words settled heavily between them. Later that cycle, another request came from Rin Era. This time, it was not a demand. It was an invitation to speak again, with witnesses present. The meeting chamber filled slowly. Representatives from several species attended, curious and cautious. Rin Era stood at the center, her posture calm, her hands folded. She began without raising her voice. My people record moments that redirect futures. We do not forget those who stand at such moments. She turned her gaze to Hanji Su. You did not know the life you saved carried meaning beyond survival. But it did. A projection appeared in the air. It showed a damaged vessel drifting in silence, then a smaller human craft approaching. A single human figure worked against orders. Rerouting supplies? Gasps echoed. Rin, Era continued. That life belonged to my sister. The room froze. Han Jisu felt his chest tighten. I did not know. He said quietly, That truth matters, she replied. You acted without hope of reward. She faced the council. Our histories speak of a human who would choose restraint when power offered ease. That choice would echo outward. Kong Mira stepped forward. Belief does not grant ownership. I, an Era, nodded. Agreed. Surprise moved through the chamber. Then why ask for him? Kong Mira demanded. Because my people bind gratitude with duty, Rin Era said. To claim him was to place him under our protection, to ensure he would never be used or harmed by greater powers. Han Jisu spoke. You would protect me by taking away my freedom. Ein Era met his eyes. Yes. She exhaled slowly. Then you misunderstand what you protected in that moment long ago. Silence fell. I chose to help because I was free to choose, he continued. If I lose that, then the act loses its meaning. The words were simple, but they struck deep. Li Suna felt her breath catch. Other delegates leaned forward. Some recorded the moment. Rin Era did not respond at once. When she did, her voice was softer. Your kind values intent more than outcome. We value both, Han Jisu replied. But intent guides us. A long pause followed. Then Rin Era raised her hand and dismissed the projection. If I release the claim, she said, my people will question my honor. Han Jisu nodded. Then let them see something new. Murmurs spread. Ein Era studied him as if seeing him for the first time. You ask me to risk my standing. I ask you to respect my choice. The chamber waited. At last, Rin Era turned to the council. The demand is withdrawn. Shock rippled outward. Kong Mira felt her knees weaken with relief. But Rin Era continued, I propose a bond of witness. The human will stand beside me, not as claimed, but as partner in testimony. Han Jisu frowned. Testimony to what? To the truth that power restrained is stronger than power taken. He considered her words. If I agree, I speak freely, always. She said. He nodded. Then I will stand. Across the chamber, something changed. Delegates who once dismissed humanity now watched with care. Later, Kong Mira spoke to him alone. Do you understand what you just did? He smiled faintly. I chose far away. In halls older than memory, Rin Era's people received the report. Some were angered. Some were uneasy. A few were curious. The pattern had shifted again, and humanity stood at its center, not by force, but by will. The days that followed felt unreal to Han Jisu. The summit no longer treated him as a problem to hide, but as a presence to consider. Delegates watched how he moved, how he spoke, and how often he chose silence instead of noise. Humanity was being judged through him, whether he wanted it or not. Rin Era kept her distance at first. She fulfilled her duties, spoke with other species, and listened more than she talked. When she did speak, her words were careful, shaped to avoid threats. This alone unsettled many. Power that learned restraint was harder to predict than force. Han Jisu was invited to observe several high-level talks. He stood behind human leaders, not as authority, but as witness. He noticed how often deals relied on fear. He noticed how rare it was for anyone to say no when pressure was applied. During one session, a merchant alliance demanded exclusive rights to human trade route in exchange for protection. The offer was framed as kindness. Kong Mira listened without reacting. Han Jisu leaned toward her and spoke. Softly. Protection that demands silence is not protection. She nodded and repeated the words aloud. The deal collapsed. News of this spread quickly. Some delegates grew uneasy. Others began to test him, asking his thoughts during breaks. Why does your kind resist simple solutions? One asked. Because simple solutions often hide simple abuse. Han Jisu replied. Rin Era watched these exchanges closely. She saw patterns she recognized from ancient records. Humans were not strong in body or fleet, but they carried an unusual loyalty to inner rules. She requested another private meeting. This time, the room was open to the stars. No guards, no translators. Their languages now flowed easily between them. You are changing the summit, Rin Era said. I am only speaking honestly. Han Jisu replied. Honesty disrupts power. He smiled. Faintly. And power should listen. She studied. Him. My people believe authority must be unquestioned to endure. And humans believe authority must be questioned to remain human. The words stayed between them. Later that cycle, tension rose again. A coalition of older species challenged Rin Era directly. They accused her of weakening tradition by releasing her claim. They demanded proof that humanity was worth the risk. Rin Era did not answer at once. She turned to Han Jisu. Will you speak? He felt the weight of many eyes. Yes. He stepped forward. You ask if humanity is worth trust, he said. We do not ask to rule. We do not ask to dominate. We ask to choose our actions and accept their cost. One delegate laughed. Choice is weakness. Han Jisu shook his head. Choice is responsibility. Weakness is avoiding it. The chamber fell quiet. Rin Era raised her voice. This human stood at a moment where disobedience saved my sister's life. He accepted punishment without complaint. He did not seek reward. That is the strength you dismiss. The coalition withdrew its challenge. For the first time, applause sounded in the summit hall. It was not loud. It was respectful. Kong Mira later found Han Jisu standing alone. You realize what you did, she said. He looked tired. I spoke again. You gave us leverage we never had. He sighed. Only told the truth. As the summit neared its end, a final agreement was drafted. It did not grant humans dominance or special status. Instead, it recognized them as moral partners. A rare title among the stars. Rin Era signed first. Han Jisu was asked to stand beside her during the sealing. Cameras recorded the moment. A human and an ancient power, side by side, not bound by fear. Afterward, Rin Era spoke quietly. My people will debate this for generations. He nodded. So will mine. She paused. You were never meant to be my prize. I know. He replied. You were meant to remind us why power must kneel before choice. The stars beyond the window burned silently. For once, Han Jisu felt that humanity was not small among them. It had stood without raising a weapon, and the galaxy had listened. The summit ended without celebration. There were no grand songs or loud displays. Instead, delegates left quietly, carrying records and memories that would not fade easily. The agreements signed were careful and limited, yet something larger had changed beneath them. Han Jisu returned to the human quarters as a private citizen. The guards withdrew. The attention faded, but the weight of what had happened stayed with him. He felt relief, but also a strange sadness. Moments that shift history rarely feel complete when they end. Kong Mira met him near the transport bay. Earth has requested your return, she said. They want to hear everything. He nodded. I will tell them the truth. That is what worries some of them, she replied with a small smile. Before departure, a final message arrived. Rin Era requested one last meeting. Not official. No witnesses. Han Jisu agreed. They met in a quiet observation room. The stars outside moved slowly, like distant thoughts. You are leaving, Rin Era said. Yes, you could have stayed. Many would have. He shook his head. My place is with my people. She accepted this without protest. My sister lives because of you, she said. She asks how she may repay that debt. Han Jisu considered. Live well. Teach others to choose carefully. Rin Era inclined her head. That is a difficult gift. The most important ones usually are. She studied him for a long moment. The galaxy will test your kind now. It already does, he replied. When he left, Rin Era remained by the window. For the first time in centuries, her people's records would contain uncertainty and hope. The journey back to Earth was quiet. Han Jisu spent most of it alone, thinking. He replayed the moment of the damaged vessel again and again. How small the choice had felt. How large it had become. On Earth, his return was not met with crowds. Officials interviewed him. Analysts debated him. Some praised him. Others warned that humanity had drawn dangerous attention. Han Jisu listened and answered simply. I did not seek attention, he said. I only acted as I believed was right. That answer frustrated many. Months passed. The galaxy responded. Trade offers came without threats. Old powers adjusted their language when speaking to humans. Some attempted to manipulate, but found resistance in unexpected places. Human negotiators began asking new questions. What is the cost? Who chooses? Who is protected? Other species noticed. Slowly, some began to adopt similar questions. Not because humans demanded it, but because it worked. Rin Era's people held long debates. Records were reviewed. Traditions were challenged. In the end, a new term was added to their language. One that described strength without control. It translated poorly, but humans understood it instinctively. Years later, a crisis rose near the same border station where Han Jisu's quiet choice had begun it all. This time, multiple species responded together. Aid arrived faster. Orders allowed room for judgment. A young officer hesitated, then chose to help beyond protocol. The cycle continued. Han Jisu never became famous. He returned to logistics. He trained others to notice small things, to ask one more question before denying aid. Sometimes, he received messages from distant systems. Short, respectful, grateful. Rin Era sent one final note. The pattern holds. He understood. Humanity did not rise through conquest. It did not demand tribute or fear. It earned space through consistency, through quiet acts repeated until they became expectation. The galaxy learned that humans were not harmless. They were restrained, and restraint, chosen freely, proved to be the rarest power of all.